So the kind of big Saints story of the day that we've been talking about is the Dre Kirkpatrick visit. Now, I guess I'll start here. Generally with these visits, right, it's like if a guy leaves town, he's not coming back. Where do things stand post-visit with Kirkpatrick? Is he maybe the answer opposite of Marshawn Lattimore for this year?
So I think he came in late yesterday. He might be meeting today, actually. So
Okay,
I'm not sure if the actual meeting is actually occurred yet. You know, as far as him being the answer opposite Marshawn Lattimore, I mean, I think he's an option opposite Lattimore. I don't know if I'd call him an answer at this point. I think his play's been a little bit sporadic throughout his career. He hasn't been the greatest in press, and the Saints play about 60% press looks. He did play really well in zone cover 4 looks, and cover 4 is a primary coverage for the Saints. You know, when he plays off in those looks, he did a pretty good job in Arizona and Cincinnati previously before that. So I don't know if the Saints could, switch up their scheme a little bit and kind of maybe play, him off on one side, Lattimore press on the other. There's probably ways to get both guys into advantageous looks for themselves and have the scheme succeed like that. But look, I think they just need to have guys in the building, have options, create competition. At this point, I'm not sure if you're going to find a surefire answer when you only have $348,000 in available cap space. You know, that's a moderate Metairie house. Like, you aren't getting an elite cornerback for that kind of money. So, they could sign a guy to a league minimum deal, get the veteran salary benefit, and it'd really be a 1-for-1 swap. They'd be able to take the last guy off the salary list, the 51st guy, who is at $780,000. So they could bring this guy in at the league minimum, and it actually wouldn't cost them anything on the cap. But if you're going above, it's $1 million and some change, and that's what you get. You get a guy that might be okay. Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle and things take off. But I do think even if they brought him in, if they're able to work an extension out for Ryan Ramczyk, which is something they're currently working on, I think maybe at that point you look and say, hey, is Garyon Conley available? Hey, Richard Sherman, I know you want to win a Super Bowl, but maybe this situation's right for you. Check it out. And maybe at that point you bring in somebody else. But I think right now, if you can get somebody, you got to get them.
Yeah, Nick, one of the things that helps when you are looking for a DB is to take away one of the best receivers in the division. That's Julio Jones going to the Titans. And so when you start to look at, the weapons outside of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I mean, the Saints roster still holds up to me to be, as far as talent, still the second best roster in the South.
Yeah, I agree with that. And getting him out of there, man, that was a weird move for them to trade him after taking Pitts. I thought when they took Pitts, they were setting up to try to get Matt Ryan back into the playoffs. And look, I mean, I thought their weapons, like, they were as scary as anybody's with him, Ridley, and Pitts. Then you trade Julio, and I think for a second-round pick, I think that's fine compensation considering they got that much cap money off the books, and that was really what the move was about. But at 4, if you're trading Julio, like, just trade Matt Ryan and take a quarterback, unless they just really hated the available quarterbacks at that point. But I agree. I mean, I think that makes them easier to match up with. Ridley's been the guy that's kind of given them trouble over the last couple of years, maybe even more so than Julio. But I think that was more about, the number 2 corners on this team. And, there was that one game where Ridley just torched them in the first half, I think maybe 2 years ago, and then they moved Marshawn onto him, and they shut him down a little bit better in the second half. So if you can do that in Marshawn, if that's one of the games he decides to show up for during the season, and that consistency is, such a major issue for him. But if he takes Ridley seriously when they play him, like, he can't cover him well, and I think that makes Atlanta a much more beatable team. So that definitely helped a team that has issues in the secondary right now getting Julio out of the division.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. In terms of like what it signals from Atlanta, they're in some sort of weird pseudo rebuild where it seems like if you're going to go this route, move on from Ryan as well. But I don't know. Do you like if Justin Fields ends up being good? Then does that blow up in Atlanta's face a bit for not going that full rebuild route?
Maybe a little bit. I think Pitts is going to be really good, and honestly, I felt like he was the best player in this draft. If you're really doing true best player available, like, for me, he would have been right up there, at the very top of that list. But
that's true. You're right.
Quarterback is such a valuable position, and if you're going into this rebuild, and if you did have a good grade on one of these quarterbacks, what are the odds you're going to be picking up 4 again? I mean, it might take a while until you get back into that spot, and even if you get back into that spot, we see how hard it is for these teams to draft quarterbacks even that high in the draft. And if you liked one and felt good about one and you passed on them knowing you were going to trade Julio Jones, it's just like a really weird purgatory to place yourself in, and you had a way out. And look, honestly, like the Saints would trade, if they could have a sure thing, if you tell them Fields was going to be good, they would much rather have Fields than be going through, this offseason with maybe Jameis Winston, maybe Taysom Hill. It's just not a position where you want uncertainty. And if you thought somebody was an answer and passed, it's just a really weird move. So, I don't know. I think Pitts is going to be really good, but if these other quarterbacks end up good, I think there is going to be some regret, probably very quickly. Because, I don't think Matt Ryan's going to be one of these guys that plays until he's 45. I think we're already seeing a little bit of decline in him over the years, really, since that MVP season. So, I don't know. It's just a weird way to build the team. And if you knew it and you made that trade and passed on the QB, it's just a very weird thing to do.
Nick, what would you do, and this is the biggest story in the NFL right now, but what would you do with Aaron Rodgers if you were in charge in Green Bay?
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think his end game is?
Rodgers' end game, I think, is to get Gutekunst fired.
Yeah, I mean, but, it's weird to me that he's not even saying anything. What do you, you're letting other people say some things, like Adam Schefter's out there reporting some stuff, and other people are saying things for you, but he hasn't really said anything directly. Even the Kenny Mayne thing was a little bit revealing when he said that it was about the culture and
I took all of that to be a direct shot across the front office bow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just if you're taking this hard stance, I think it's often much more effective to just come out and say something than let everybody else guess for you.
That's fair.
It feels like, what is he doing? It just feels like he's turning Green Bay fans against him just through the silence and not showing up. And I feel like you could curry a lot more favor just by maybe saying something, being like, hey, look, these people have mistreated me. I feel like I've given everything to this organization. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have drafted Jordan Love, but maybe they could have told me that it was a possibility. And look, you know who Aaron Rodgers is if he's working for you. We know who Aaron Rodgers is just by seeing how he's interacted with people throughout his career. And he's a principled, emotional guy who seems somewhat vindictive. I think when this first started, everybody kind of felt like, well, this is going to be the guy that takes it all the way. Russell Wilson doesn't have it in him. Aaron Rodgers would take it all the way. And for them to just kind of treat him like, it doesn't matter, he'll deal with it. I just don't think that's him. And I think you have to know how to manage different personalities. And, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if he got traded, honestly. I think he's actually going to not show up. And I think that he would take this as far as it needs to go. And, I don't know. It just seems like a situation that's, if any of them are going to not have a resolution, this is the one. And I can see him not showing up going into training camp. And at some point, I think he gets to the point where they do have to trade him. I don't know how long you can just let him sit there and let this be a thing. But if he's not in their camp, on August 10th or something, I don't think you can just keep riding it out. So if there's a chance of one of these guys getting traded, I definitely think it would be him.
It's a weird time in quarterbacks in the NFC and teams that made the playoffs in the NFC, not knowing what Green Bay is going to do. Chicago is going to have a new starting quarterback. Washington is going to have a quarterback battle in training camp. The Saints are going to have one. When you look at Los Angeles now getting Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff going to Detroit. Now, Detroit's a long way from the playoffs, but there's been so much movement as far as not only quarterbacks everywhere in the NFC, but playoff teams are going to have a new quarterback some uncertainty.
You forgot about Trubisky challenging Josh Allen for the starting job.
I said NFC.
Buffalo.
I said NFC. My bad. NFC, T-Bob, NFC.
Yeah, it's been a crazy offseason, and I think it could have even been even crazier if a couple of different things happened. But it does make it difficult to kind of gauge where things are going to be. And I think the teams that do have continuity, it does give them a little bit of an advantage, even though we're kind of assuming that some of these teams will turn over are going to be good. You assume the Rams will still be good. I assume the Saints will still be competitive and things will work out, but you never really do know. And, it's weird. We're kind of entering a little bit of a player empowerment era in the NFL, or it seems like the players are trying to enter a player empowerment era in the NFL, but I'm not necessarily sure that it actually works that way. It works in some situations. I mean, it's kind of hypocritical for me to say when Julio just kind of forced his way out of a situation with the $15 million cap hit. But typically these trades don't work the same way they do in the NBA. And I think the Tom Brady situation kind of had an effect on different quarterbacks, and I've seen different guys bring that up and just trying to get the different situations. But his situation was different. Like, he was a free agent, and the team he was with didn't want him back really. So he just went somewhere and kind of built his thing. But trying to force a trade like Russell Wilson, that's hard to do because trading contracts for guys is difficult because the guaranteed money, the signing bonus, that stays on your cap. Like, you can't just walk away from that. And a lot of teams can't afford those hits. And oftentimes it costs them more to get rid of a guy than to keep him, at least in the short term. So, yeah, I think we're going to see players try to force these situations more and more often. And I think that, some uncertainty this time of year and more changeover than what's been typical is probably going to become more of the norm. I just don't think it's going to ever go as far as the players would like it to go, just because the contracts don't work the same way in other sports.
Nick Underhill, Nick_Underhill on Twitter. Go to NewOrleans.football. Sign up for the best Saints site out there. Nick, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
All right, take it easy. All right, when we get back, let's wrap up the show. A little Ask the Bench brought to you by Cold Coors Light. Keep it locked right here on OTB.